4:59.
Our audio is live. We are about to
tell
go.
Me about
3, 2, 1, and we're live.
3 seconds early.
Yeah, I have several buttons
it's live.
to push.
Well, hello, Steve. How are you tonight?
Podfeet. How are you in this house of horrors?
Okay, so you guys got to know that you're in a big mess when you have 4 people walking around a house trying to figure out where the toilet seat went.
We literally lost a brand new toilet seat.
And we can't find it anywhere.
It escaped.
I mean, I'm yelling out things like, found the medicine cabinets.
Wow.
Oh, it is a mess like you cannot believe here. It feels like it congealed a little bit today, though. We got to see the toilet is actually installed. It's a toilet seat that is
the third toilet is installed.
Well, technically second.
Second, I guess. You're right, second.
Yeah. And let's see, what else got to... Oh, the bathtub fixtures got put in, and the shower fixtures got put in. Looks pretty good. What do you think, Steve? You like it?
I'm quite impressed with the work. It's turmoil getting there, but I think it's going to be worth it in the end. As Dorothy says, eye on the prize.
That's right. She keeps telling us that. I don't know. It's hard to see the prize some days. I've been walking on plastic floors for, is it 4 months now?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, in about a week, it'll be 4 months.
Right.
We've been on plastic floors, plastic-coated carpeting. The nice part is when you pull the plastic up, it's sticky underneath. We need to know what day to schedule the guy to clean the carpets, right?
Yes. Probably.
All right. Well, this isn't home construction, right? We should probably be talking about the show.
I think we should.
I think so. All right. Let's do some roll call here. I'm doing something that would drive Steve crazy if he knew I was doing it.
No little clock.
I am what?
Forgot your little clock. And actually,
well, you had it. It was stuck to my head.
We need it today because we don't have the Podfeet clock up yet.
Oh, yeah. Where'd it go? Yeah. So this room got painted. Oh, you got okay. Let's do roll call. Let's try to focus on one thing. We have Steve and Kevin and Alan, who's been very active over in our Slack. We got Dave Ginsburg. We got Toby's in the house. I never know if Jedi's here. Jino Choi, are you actually here? That's new.
I'm betting he's not.
Yeah, but he's green. Joe Prizer, I saw chatting, but I don't see green. But I know you're here. And let's see, John is here, and Rose, and Rick, who is also very active in our Slack, and Rush, who has his dumb question, going to get answered this week, and Frank bringing up the end of the roll call with his wheels, and also active in our Slack. So it's a lot of fun. Wait, YouTube went down?
That was a while. Not right now. It's up now.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. All right. I was a little concerned. So what I was saying would be making Steve crazy is remember last week I showed...
Did you forget Kevin?
No, I said Kevin.
Oh, okay.
Didn't I?
I don't know, because he's kind of at the top there. You may have just skipped right over him.
Oh, okay.
Because he asked if he was here.
Maybe that's why. So I mentioned last week this little tiny USB-C device called the Luna display, but things got real weird during the recording last week. And so I thought this might have been something to do with it. And that's what allows me, I'm using my 12.9-inch iPad Pro as the display for Discord, but it's actually just doing screen mirroring from my Mac. So I'm using all of my screens now. It's very exciting. All right. I did a test recording for Rick, so I think we might be close to ready to go.
I think so.
Let's see. How about an intro music? Let's put you down here. Sure, we'll put you on the music track. Why not? And we'll bring that down even further.
I think Sandy just snuck in.
Oh, Sandy. That was close, but I haven't started the recording. So, and she's a wing woman. So actually, we need to put her up under wing woman.
She may have earned that spot. Oh, Joe asked a good question. How does Luna differ from Duet display? So
this is actual hardware. It's a little USB thumb drive looking thingy. Mine is USB-C, but they also sell a USB-A version, and it does some sort of hardware thing. And I haven't been able to get a good answer from them on what it is doing differently, because if I turn off Wi-Fi, it doesn't work. So it seems to be using, well, actually, no, it used Wi-Fi today. I don't know what it's doing. I had Wi-Fi. I can actually no, I can turn Wi-Fi off and it still works. And I don't know. I'm not sure how it's doing it. It's very strange.
But it does involve a piece of hardware.
Yes,
That's
yes.
for sure.
I have to have this little thumb drive-y thing. I mean, I showed it last time. If I unplug it, it'll stop working. But it's literally like that big, like smaller than my thumbnail. Stick it now. About the size of the last joint of my thumb. That's about it. All right, we should probably get started. I added one little thing at the top if you want to refresh your screen, Steve. Okay. It's not of high import, but... Oh, Sandy wanted to see wedding pictures, so you can start throwing them in.
Oh boy, you guys are going to get inundated if you ask for that.
Yeah,
I'll just throw a couple up.
Actually, put the one of me in Forbes. That's the best of the wedding pictures.
I'll go search for it.
Okay. All right, let's get started here. Here we go. Muting Steve. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Monday, October 29th, 2018, and this is show number 703. Well, we got our son Kyle married off this weekend to Nikki, and it was such a blast. We had such a good time. You know, it's really fun when the families get along in a wedding. You know, both sides are really happy and like each other. That's really fun. And, you know, I kind of expected that would be a fun part about it, but I didn't realize how much fun her friends would be. Steve and I danced from around 7 p.m. until midnight, almost nonstop. I have ice on my right knee as a result because I'm 60. But I got to tell you, I don't regret it a bit. I wasn't able to go on a big exercise today. I think it'll be fine by tomorrow. Anyway, I do appreciate you all being patient enough to wait until Monday night for us to do the show. I do also have to say, I've been referring to our house as the House of Horrors. Since I talked to you last, I have moved back out of my temporary studio and back into my temporary studio, which then we decided should become my real studio. Steve broke up Kyle's old childhood desk that was in this room that I was using. And then they put my real desk in here, and I'm now in my official new studio. It has some real big advantages, having my own room where I can work late at night if I want to, and Steve can sleep, because I used to do it in our bedroom. And but it does have one downside. I'm right above the garage. So if Steve forgets and opens the garage door when I'm recording, you're going to hear it. We're working on a couple of different home automation ideas, maybe a light that I can trigger from here when I'm recording. Steve says, why not just put a smart switch on the garage door and just disable it? So, you know, you never know what we're going to do with this. It could be fun. But I'm kind of excited to have my own little place here. And I don't know why we didn't think about it earlier. Well, Steve and I hope to see you all in the chat room tomorrow for the Apple announcement. Head on over to podfeet.com/chat at 7 a.m. Pacific time so we can all get giddy with excitement together. I can't wait to see what they've done in the iPad line personally, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be able to talk about what's boring, what's stupid, what's awesome. It's always a lot of fun. So podfeet.com/chat, 7 a.m. Pacific time, whatever time it is in your time zone. Well, I get a lot of PR emails trying to get me to interview people. I have never responded to one until now. I was asked, do you want to interview a former NASA space shuttle engineer who's turned into a science fiction author? His name is Darren Beyer. What do you think? Oh my gosh, how could I possibly refuse? I had super high hopes, but it was better than I expected. In Chit Chat Across the Pond Light, I did have the great pleasure of interviewing Darren about his amazing adventures. Darren's stories were fascinating as he described being one of the last people tramping around in the cargo bay of the shuttle before the astronauts got into it to go into space. I got to tell you, that is a crazy dream job. Anyway, then we shifted gears into talking about his science fiction books. He's got 2 books out in what he calls the Angazi series. Book 1 has been out for a while. It's called Casimir Bridge, and book 2 was just released called The Pathogen Protocol, or just Pathogen Protocol, I guess. Anyway, after I got off the air with Darren, we had so much fun. I said, you know, we're like friends now. You have to send me all your information so we can talk anytime. I love talking to him, and I think you'll enjoy the conversation as much as we did. Well, because we're all nerds around here, a conversation about NASA engineering and science fiction is considered a light episode. So check it out in Chit Chat Across the Pond Light or in the full Chit Chat Across the Pond feed in your podcatcher of choice. As always, you can listen directly at podfeet.com. Whew, there we go. Oh, yeah, John, I meant to ask you, so do you know Darren Beyer?
Yeah. Out of the
I mean,
thousands
it's possible,
of people.
right? You got to ask.
Yeah, definitely worth asking. I think they're at a different. They were at different facilities, but still, they could run
Yeah.
across each other.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to read hash photos
Okay,
next.
Kevin's commanding something here.
Uh-oh. What is he saying? Save and chapter marks. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, wait a minute. Come on. This one. Preview. That one. All right. Here we go. And go. Hash on go.
So John says no, didn't meet him, but had dealings with the crew that put the mid-deck experiments in at the last minute. So probably people that he worked with, I'm guessing.
Oh, cool. At one point, Steve asked me to ask him if he ever got to talk to the astronauts, and I was like, "Well, that's lame. If he did, that'll be fun. But if he didn't, that'd be like, no, I didn't get to." His first answer was, "Yeah, one of them baked us cookies once." So he gave her name. I forget what her name is, but anyway, you got to listen to it. It's so
Yeah,
much fun.
it's worth.
I mean, seriously, it is such. Even Steve liked it.
Even I did.
And he barely listens to my stuff anymore. You know, we leave the show and he asks me questions where, like, it's clear he didn't listen to a thing about the show. Uh-oh, Alan's picked up the same exact text expander
doubled.
snippet. Okay, that is awesome. That's hilarious, Alan. Looks like he's bucking for your job. All right, muting Steve. Back in June, I told you about an awesome app for iOS called Hash Photos. I like to think of Hash Photos as kind of a better front-end GUI to your Apple Photos library. My blog post was pretty in-depth, but it turns out there's a ton more cool stuff that it could do than I even realized at the time. I discovered these new features because I decided to teach Hash Photos for the Screencast Online subscribers. I tell you, you know that, but it's no better way to learn a tool than to have to teach it. After creating the tutorial, I actually moved Hash Photos to the home screen on my iOS devices and moved Apple Photos to the second screen. That is how much I love this tool. I wanted to make sure I didn't instinctively open regular photos, but went to Hash Photos instead. I'm super proud of the tutorial I created, and I hope you'll consider doing the 7-day free trial of Screencast Online so you can watch it. I put a teaser video over in the blog post so you guys can watch the teaser video. But it is such a phenomenal app. I mean, let me just give you one little teeny thing that I love that it does. I took a screenshot with my Apple Watch today, and I needed to embed it in a blog post, and I needed it now. Well, I knew it would already be on my phone, but how long was it going to take to go up to the internet and come back down into Apple Photos? Doesn't matter. Open up Hash Photos. There's a button that says send to Mac or PC. Send it over to my Mac. Boom, done. Didn't have to wait for it to go all the way up to the internet and come back down. So instead of, texting it to yourself or whatever, it's just a much better way to do it. Anyway, I am in love with Hash Photos, and it comes through in my tutorial. It's almost an hour long because I just couldn't fit it all in. In fact, when I got completely finished, don't tell Don, I forgot to mention that you can edit videos with it too. Oops. Well, shh. Be very, very quiet. Do not tell him. All right, there you go. And I'm going to need another chapter marker. Preview. What's next? I don't think I put a link. I'm going to make some notes here. I don't think I put a link in that video tutorial to the real video. Link to
Don who?
Log. What's that?
Frank asked, Don who?
Yeah. Oh, shoot. I forgot. We've got a spy in the audience.
You remember your boss there, Frank?
No,
I use boss in quotes. The man. Working for the man.
Put link to SCO and blog, make Sandy wing woman. We've been meaning to do that. Typo for Doctor Who. Oh, we just started the new Doctor Who series.
Yeah.
We got to get back to that.
Great Doctor Who.
Okay. Oh, goody. We've got George from Tulsa next. Is George in the chat room? Did he come in?
I haven't seen him yet, or any nickname that sounds like him. I
sure hope that Black. Yep. didn't know whether FLAC could come into my recorder. Okay, let's see. Do not tell him.
Yes.
What was that? Oh,
That
I
was
didn't
my
mute
phone.
Steve.
Sorry, I should.
Muted you. Well, shh. Be very, very quiet. Do not tell him.
I recently reconfigured.
Well, guess I better introduce George. Oh, and I didn't do a chapter. Did anybody tell me to? Oh, Alan did. All right. I start right here. Well, next up, we've got a surprisingly brief, and you can tell when I'm ad-libbing. Well, we've got a surprisingly brief recording from George from Tulsa. That's not a bad thing, and I'm not complaining about the long ones.
I recently reconfigured.
I know I did that. Let's see, make sure that didn't double up. The long ones, but let's have a listen.
I recently reconfigured my home computer desk, which enabled me to replace a 27-inch WQHD monitor with a 49-inch 4K TCL Roku Smart TV, purchased for $320 at the nearby Best Buy. Running the 4K TV at 1920 by 1080, I'm able to scale both Mac and Linux UI to compensate for my increasing visual challenges. Don't have vision issues? The native 4K resolution would enable putting a lot of spreadsheets or GarageBand tracks on screen at one time. I'd been listening to Leo Laporte and his home theater geek, Scott Wilkinson, discussing 4K TVs on the Tech Guy podcast, and they both speak favorably of TCL sets. My now 3-week experience.
Okay, I'm actually not going to give you the whole recording because we have a lot to do tonight. But what he's going to be what he talked about is putting LEDs behind a TV to give what's called bias lighting, and I had never heard of this. So
some TVs come with that built in.
Okay.
On the back side or the sides.
So there's a picture in the blog post. I was asking whether you could drop that in. He's got 3 pictures. He's got the lights on, the lights off, and then the LED lights on instead, and it really looks good.
Which one do you want with it lights on?
It's one picture.
Oh,
it's
that's
one
one
screenshot.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to mute you because I'm going to say a little bit here at the end.
And your TV viewing.
Well, I think the best way to describe what he's talking about is to read what April said over in our Slack at podfeed.com/Slack. She said, after I posted the blog post that George wrote, I always enjoy listening to these guest posts, but this one I'm glad to have read. The images in this post tell a pretty good story. The colors of the room lights on and the room lights off with bias lighting are very close. I'm amazed that this effect was created just from the makeshift strand of Christmas lights behind the TV. This is fascinating stuff. And I completely agree. You got to go see George's picture to really get what he's talking about. I had never heard of this bias lighting thing, and it looks pretty cool. I think we should do it, but I haven't convinced Steve to do it yet. We'll see. All right. Now I can do a chapter mark.
Yes.
And Steve's allowed to talk. Oh, wait a minute. You guys.
What?
I didn't do one for George.
Chapter mark?
Yeah, I didn't do one for George. Okay, that should be monitor and bias lighting. URL title is this. One copy. I think they changed that. So to do that easier. Okay, so now this one. Now it's answers to Rush's dumb questions. Activity goal answers. Okay, that is a good one. I'm not going to lie.
What? The photo?
That picture? Yeah, did you tell him where it was?
I haven't yet. It's at the Richard Nixon Presidential Library in Yorba Linda, California. And that sounds like a weird place to hold a wedding and reception, but it turned out to be really good.
Yes, that is a lot of groomsmen. That is
Yeah.
Steve. And so one guy, Mike, the second guy on the right, is the officiant. Steve being father of the bride. And then Kyle, of course, is not a groomsman. But every single other person, there are 9 groomsmen. 9 groomsmen, 9 bridesmaids, and they had them walk down one at a time. Took like a half an hour for the bridal party to get down. So, did you, let's see, did you post any pictures of Forbes?
I posted the one of you and Forbes. Let me scroll back.
I'm looking for it. That one should be on screen at all times.
Oh, it should. Pinned, huh? Man.
I haven't seen it.
It's way back.
Oh,
Well, maybe
man.
not.
I don't think he did.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't
wondering.
think-
It's funny. It's not. Oh,
I'm
there
not
it is.
seeing it. Oh, Sandy says she saw it.
There it
Okay,
is.
good.
Look in the chat.
It's so cute.
Isn't it cutie?
He and his cousin were she was the flower girl, and it was, oh, Sandy said how cute he was and how good I looked. I'll take that compliment. They nailed it. During the rehearsal, they were horrible. I mean, well, she was, I don't think she was, but he was awful. Like, he walked onto the grass and just simply threw himself down on the ground. And he was supposed to walk hand in hand. They were supposed to throw flowers and everything. And his other grandmother was giving everybody a hard time, going, well, they didn't practice throwing the flowers. How are they going to know to do it? And I said, they can't remember anything from 15 minutes ago. You think that's going to matter? But they nailed it. I mean, just so cute. When Forbes got up to the front, he went, yes, as he got pulled in. It was awesome.
And on the way out, as they were, his cousin and Forbes were on their way out, he looks back at all the chairs of everyone and kind of waves, bye-bye.
Yeah, he goes, bye-bye. He does this with his hand like this. He goes,
One of these
bye-bye,
moves, yeah.
bye-bye. And he turned around. Somebody held their hand up, and he started doing high fives, and everybody started doing high fives with him down the aisle. It was hilarious. Not that we're proud. We should probably stop talking about my grandchild, right? Kevin did that at his wedding. Waved goodbye at everybody. Okay, let's see. Here we go. All right. Now, activity goal answers. Are we ready? Muting
Yes.
Steve, goodbye. Nope. Not if I don't hit the right window, I won't be. Last week on the podcast, I played Russ Sherman's dumb question asking us what makes a good Apple Watch activity goal. We got some terrific answers, and I think they add a lot to this conversation. I want to start out with Rick Abraham, who answered on the blog post with this advice. Once per week, my Series 4 watch prompts me with a new, usually higher daily activity goal based on my past week's performance, currently 560 for me. I typically leave my goal the same as I don't have the time required it would take to achieve an increased activity goal. If I did have the time, I would probably go with the recommendation made on the watch each week until the goal again became undoable for me time-wise. It might also be a good idea to consult a doctor and get an expert's opinion on the proper activity goal based on your particular situation. Another factor for me is I still use the Lose It app to track calories consumed. If I have a few bad eating days where I consume way more than my daily calorie average, I will increase my activity to offset those consumed calories. Knowledge is power. So I guess I'm saying for me, it is a moving target rather than a static number etched in stone week to week. Well, thanks, Rick. That's pretty much how I approached it, but the number kept going up, and I do have the time. It was killing me, so I stopped responding to its request to up my number, and it eventually quit nagging me, which I thought was interesting. I think the best part of your advice is to consult a doctor. This sounds stupid, but I never even thought about that. That's a really good idea. When you mentioned using Lose It to track calories and balance that with exercise, it reminded me of a story from Stephen Getz. One time he said, he wrote to me, he said, the Apple Watch let me have a cookie. Well, what he meant was that he did an extra walk around the block, and the watch told him he had now earned the right amount of extra calorie burn to be able to fit a cookie into his diet. I like the way he said it, though. All right, moving on. Norbert Frost has said over in Facebook, my 2 cents is that good activity goals are personal to the individual. I think that you have to use your stated activity goal with other data, like weight, medical conditions, and lifestyle. If you're doubling your active goal but still gaining weight, then it's time to step it up. However, if you hit your goal 3 of 7 days but getting healthier, then that's okay. If you let the Apple Watch take over, it will continue to increase your goal if it sees you're hitting your numbers consistently. The most important thing is to have a balanced life with your goal. It's not about the actual number. Norbert, man, you make some really great points here, especially about it being an individual goal. You got to kind of think of it as like your personal record. You don't just set your PR goal based on somebody else. It's just that it's personal. The other thing I was thinking about now, you said it's time to step it up if you're still gaining weight. I would also add something I learned from a guy who had lost about 100 pounds. I met him at a conference at the Command D conference, and I was kind of bragging about Bart and all the weight he'd lost. And he said, "Yeah, I lost 100 pounds." And anyway, he said that the trainer he worked with had the best advice ever. He said, "You can't outrun your fork." Think about that. Anyway, Dave Brennett gave his practical advice over on our Facebook group at podfeed.com/Facebook. He said, good activity goals are only seen in hindsight. If they can't be stuck to, then they are not good. And small incremental changes are better than reaching for the moon. Dave, man, you are right on here. Combining that with what Norbert said, maybe the way to do it is get a baseline that is your personal normal. Wear the watch for a couple of weeks. Watch how it measures what you're doing without even trying. Then think about the goals that would be practical for you. Can you 10% more next week? Sure you can. Try that for a few weeks. And when it becomes too easy, then think about the next 10%. You talk about not reaching for the moon. That just really resonates with me. I knew someone who would get a gym membership, and she would go to the gym, 10 straight days. I'm going every day. I'm doing an hour a day and do all this. And she would set her goals so hard to reach that way that she would always give up. And I don't know that she ever even got back to it, but this happened over and over again. Well, Rick Cartwright wrote in our Slack over at podfeed.com/Slack, I don't have a good answer, but I'll ramble for a couple of minutes. I love that. Anyway, he said, I think this is very individual. Each person is likely motivated by something different. A friend of mine has to set his move goal high and is motivated when the app increased it every week. That gets him motivated. If he falls short, it motivates him for the next week. I'm personally more motivated by the streak. No, I'm not streaking. How long I can close my rings, that kind of streak. He says, I'm at 883 days. That keeps me very motivated. I don't up my move goal. My move average is over 1,000 calories, but I really don't get motivated by that number. It's the streak that motivates me. My OCD, I guess. A long way of saying, know what makes you work hard and set your goal accordingly. I hope that makes sense and is helpful. Well, Rick, you're right on. I've noticed that when I have a good streak going, I do not allow a lazy day. It is not going to happen. Luckily, I haven't had a streak going in about 6 months. So while most days I rock my goals, an odd day off here and there isn't the end of the world. But if I've got a streak going, man, I stay on it. Looks like I got to start a new streak. I got to say, though, 883-day streak, that is nuts. I don't care what your goal is. Now, I do know people that the idea of the watch nagging them is the last thing that would motivate them. And yet that little nag it's golden to me. In fact, I wish it would nag me more. Another motivational idea might be the little badges that Pat Dengler loves so much. Even though they're virtual, she'll do everything in the world to get them. Other people might think that's silly and not even consider them motivational. Another thing you could look at is the Apple Watch supports competitions between people, and that can be another way to get motivated. Maybe you don't get motivated by competitions, but you like the badges, or you like these other ideas Rick has. I think all of these different ideas are exactly what Rick was saying. What motivates you? That's what you want to drive for. I love this topic, can you tell? And I hope everyone learned an idea that might help them find the right activity goal for them, and that'll help them get healthier. I'd like to talk more, but I have to get 61 workouts done in the month of October to get that little badge. All right. Where can I watch Doctor Who on iOS, even subscriptions? We found the BBC America app on the Apple TV, and we didn't actually have to sign in with our Frontier subscription.
And that surprised me. I don't know how that happened, unless it auto-detected, but I've never seen that occur.
Well, they were supposed to have that single sign-on thing, right?
Yeah, I don't... boy, that was too seamless.
Yeah, so we thought maybe we had commercials, and we thought, okay, maybe if we sign in, we won't have commercials. So we signed in, and we still had commercials. So I'm not sure. Save as the sausage gods might summon it at any time. Actually, Steve. Oh, good. You did put my new vegetable grinder.
Yeah, it's a little bit hidden behind the
It's
chair.
turned a little bit. Yeah, but it's
rotate
okay.
it.
You can see all the crap I forgot to clean up off my chair.
Yeah.
That's a nice feature.
Luckily, there's nothing embarrassing back there, right?
Yep. Let's see. That was fun. People really came out with some great ideas for that. No, the Oh, by the way, I didn't mention we're in my new studio, but Steve's den, which he's in right now, is going to be destroyed tomorrow.
Actually, tonight.
Tonight?
We need to rip it down.
Well, you're going to take it down tonight. Yeah, but they're going to put in the
paint.
Paint.
You put that paint right in there.
There you go. Okay, I got to do the Patreon thing, and then it's going to be a long diatribe with no ending. One of the most disappointing blog posts you'll ever hear. But
that's a
too
good
bad
sell.
you kept
Yeah, you're going to lose everyone.
I can't apologize though. You know, I apologize to everybody for the bad audio on that one review, and I got a whole bunch of people saying, "Why'd you apologize? The audio sounded fine."
Huh?
I think I set expectations really low. All right, muting Steve. I am really excited to welcome Clan Rollins to our list of patrons of the Podfeet podcast. Boy, I have trouble saying that. Patrons of the Podfeet podcast. Anyway, it's like, you think of it being like being a patron of the arts, only it's a podcast and it's about tech, not art. So, totally the same. Anyway, Clan apparently went to podfeet.com/Patreon and he signed up to contribute $1 amount a week to help us continue to produce. You know what? I have done. That's like the 8th mouth typo in a row. We're going to do that one again. I am really excited to welcome Clan Rollins to our list of patrons of the Podfeet podcast. It's like being a patron of the arts. Well, it's a podcast and it's about tech, not art. So like totally the same, right? Anyway, Clan apparently went to podfeet.com/Patreon and he signed up to contribute $1 amount a week to help us continue to produce the shows. He felt there was enough value in the knowledge he gains and the entertainment value of the shows we produce here. It's that value for value thing that really makes Patreon a great way to contribute to the show. If you got some spare money, just, taking up room in your bank account, please consider becoming a patron and show your support like Clan did. And dang it, I didn't capitalize his name. And show your support. Whoa. Please consider becoming. That's all right. One moment. Bank account. Please consider becoming a patron and show your support like Clan and all the other fine patrons. I've got to fix his name. That's really rude. Hey, just make your name lowercase. I saw that. And I need to send him a thank you note. He has not gotten his thank you note yet. All right. Do you think this is a good blog post, Steve, or do you think it's as bad as I do?
It's not a bad blog post. It just doesn't have a nice ending. But it's informative along the way. It's instructive for those who may encounter similar problems with their Wi-Fi.
Okay.
I think one can learn a few lessons from it.
Good. I just wish it went somewhere.
It still may. We may uncover. I don't want to give everything away, so I'll let you go.
That's okay. Testing wonky Wi-Fi. Wonky Wi-Fi. It's fun to say. All right. I have chapter markers in. I am going to mute Steve, and now everybody kick back and chat. Oh, Sandy, I'll tell you how cool Nikki's parents are. Kyle's wife's parents. They found out that the Nixon Library did not, their catering service did not have Tanqueray gin, so they brought Tanqueray in just for us. They also brought in Butter Chardonnay, our favorite Chardonnay. How nice are they?
And for the women, they did this. Well, actually, for anyone who had uncomfortable shoes,
Oh,
at the wedding. They did this.
it's not in just yet. There it comes. Flip-flops. Oh, yeah. The guys had those on too, Steve.
Yeah, there were a few. I think more women did, but that's fine.
I have mine in the closet if we could demo them here. Oh, okay.
And they didn't just pick those up off the street. Those were new.
It was awesome. Oh, you should show them a picture of my toe.
Oh, really? Oh, with the toe ring?
No.
Yes.
What I did the day before.
Oh,
Or the day.
so that they can see the full glory? I don't think I have that photo.
Oh, it's in Facebook.
Oh, that's too much work.
It's a bad thing. I stubbed another toe. Got an amazing, brutal bruise.
This one looked worse, though.
Oh, yeah. It definitely looked worse. It was not as bad. By the way, that's halfway. It's almost all gone.
Good.
All right.
Good.
Well, if you're good, I'll show you my toes later. All right. Muting Steve. I might have to take a break. This is a long one. 3,000 words. Here we go. This week, Steve and I ran into a very curious problem with our internal network at our house. Before I jump into what went wrong, I got to give you the layout of our current network. We have Frontier Fios, used to be owned by Verizon, and we're paying for symmetric 75 megabits per second upload and download. We've had fantastic service for years with only minor interruptions in service. If you've been following along for a long time, you may remember back in 2013 when Bart taught all of us how to essentially bypass ISP-supplied Fios routers and instead use a router of our own choosing. I put a link of that in the show notes to the full tutorial, but the main idea is you configure the Fios router as a NAT router with a DMZ address on the LAN side. Then your real router is configured with its WAN side address to that DMZ address from the Fios router. From here, your real router gets to dish out DHCP addresses and do management of the network. Essentially, the Fios router becomes simply a pass-through device. And yes, I did try to see how many acronyms I could get in 3 sentences. Anyway, you don't need to remember all that. But back when he taught us, I had an Airport Extreme. In February of 2017, I added a Netgear R8500 tri-band router to the mix. Bart had explained the dangers of having janky IoT devices on our network, so I created 2 internal networks, one with the Airport Extreme for the IoT devices of suspicious origin and any Windows machines that wandered into our house, and then the Netgear for our Macs and any HomeKit-enabled IoT devices. And of course, this separated network design was all documented in a blog post as well. Well, because I'm a genius, a year and a half later, it occurred to me, the Netgear router has a guest network. I could use that instead of this overly complex setup with 2 separate routers. Over the last few months, Steve and I have been hunting down every device that was on the Airport Extreme and moving them over to the Netgear's guest network. Now, you'd think this would be an easy task. I mean, both routers have nice tables that clearly show you what devices are on which network. Unfortunately, while, Apple devices say things like Apple TV, many devices don't report exactly who they are. They have helpful information like Texas Instruments is their name. TI makes a lot of chips that are on a lot of devices. Which one are you? Well, one of my solutions after we'd found everything we could think of was just to unplug the Airport Extreme every once in a while and see what failed. Well, that turned into a big mess when Steve's weather station got knocked off online, but that's a whole story in and of itself. Now, you might also remember that I received a pair of Netgear Orbi mesh routers, and I had set them up to extend our network. Turns out that seemed to confuse some of our devices. I'm not entirely sure I did that whole bridge networking thing correctly when I set those up, so I shut them off for now. I'm not sure we found all of the devices on the Airport Extreme yet, but for the most part, everything's running on the Netgear now. Since most of the stuff is IoT, I only made a 2.4 gigahertz guest network for those devices. I'm happy to say that now when you look at the available Wi-Fi networks when you're at our house, only 3 of them are mine instead of 7. I consider that progress. All right, that's all the background. Now to the interesting problem from this week. I might have mentioned a few hundred times that we're doing a massive amount of construction in our house. We have gutted 3 bathrooms, the entryway, the laundry room, 2 fireplaces, and then we decided, hey, it's anarchy anyway, why not have the entire interior of the house repainted? It's been 30 years, so it seemed like time. Well, in order to repaint the inside of the house while you're living it, we've had to unplug and move from room to room as the painters essentially chased us around the house. I told him, I feel like a MASH unit. I can pack up and unpack really quickly. Now, I'm not sure any of that contributed to the problems, but suddenly we had really, really slow internet at our house. I'm talking sub 1 megabits per second on some tests. On a good test, we might see 20 to 30 megabits per second, but often it was in single digits when we went to speedtest.net. Again, remember, we're paying for 75, and we normally get far in excess of those speeds. Oh, the first thing I did was call Frontier, and the tech support guy, Daniel, asked me the usual questions. After quite a while on the phone, I was able to ask him, could you check to see if there's a problem in my area? And he said, oh, yeah, I guess I could check for that. This has happened before. They don't check for that first. Wouldn't you go, let me check your area first? Instead, they ask a bunch of dumb questions. Anyway, he came back and said, yes, there is a problem in my area, but it's only affecting a few hundred homes. Well, that was good enough for me. As soon as I know it's not just my house, I don't really worry that much because I know they're going to get to it faster than if it's just me. It was still sad. We couldn't watch our streaming TV, so we were forced to read books. Well, good thing our Kindles already had them downloaded. Well, the next day, Steve noticed something interesting. He ran a test and he got 100 megabits per second down and up, but he was on wired Ethernet. He unplugged and the numbers went back into the pooper. He plugged back in and they went right back up to faster than we were paying for. I was able to replicate his test using my Mac on wired Ethernet. Sure enough, the speeds were great. That meant the problem was internal to our network. I didn't call Daniel back to confess. All right, now it was time to figure this out. My first thought was to restart the router, but for some reason the web interface to the Netgear, which clearly has a reboot button, was not responding when I pushed it. I decided to just unplug the router, wait 10 seconds, and plug it back in. That didn't fix the problem. After the hard shutdown, I was able to use the reboot button on the web interface, but again, that didn't fix anything. I checked for firmware updates, but there were none. By the way, I have a monthly reminder to check for firmware updates. Network Gear is pretty good about sending emails when critical updates are released, but it's good to keep on top of them anyway. I started running some ping times to www.apple.com. By the way, you can't ping apple.com for some reason. It's www.apple.com. Anyway, those ping times were awful. And that's when the packets got through it all. Even when I'm doing an audio call to Bart way over in Ireland, I see ping times of under 400 milliseconds. But when I was pinging Apple's local servers, in the United States, probably California, I was getting thousands of millisecond ping times, and often many completely dropped connections. Then, for grins and giggles, I decided to try pinging my own router while on Wi-Fi. One ping took 10,000 milliseconds inside my house. Well, that just ain't right. It was time to ask for help. I posted in our Slack in the Mac Geek Gab forums. Okay, time for a break because I'm starting to stutter and say things wrong. Have I missed anything, Steve? It was time to ask for help.
I don't think so.
Nothing? It's all just been jibber jabber?
Yeah, a lot of jibber jabber.
You remember what that's from? That was what one of the weird guys on Ally McBeal used to say that about.
Yes.
It was the judge.
Yes.
Too much jibber jabber. I think that was Ally McBeal.
I think it was.
You're not on the screen.
Now I am.
Maybe you have a conflict with some other Wi-Fi network on the same channel or adjacent channel. That is one of the things we looked at.
Yes. They weren't talking about, well, I don't know, actually. Rick, were you talking to us or talking to Joe, or Alan? Well, either way, that's a good thing to check.
Yeah. Joe says, I would always get this report. Oh, there's no reported outage.
I think I was muted in Discord.
Oh. Let's see. Okay. Muting Steve. It was time to ask for help. I posted in our Slack, in the Mac Geek Gab Facebook group, and in the Mac Geek Gab forums where a lot of nerdlets hang out. I posted my question as, does Wi-Fi ever just go bad on a router? I got many helpful answers. Quite a few people answered interestingly with the answer of yes. And someone, I couldn't find this again, who wrote this, they even added that Netgear seems to be susceptible to this more than others. A lot of people suggested it was an interference problem because of congestion on the channel I was using. My neighborhood is kind of low end in the Wi Fi competition category, though. I got the best information in everything I looked at from someone who goes by data for nothing and bits for free. You gotta love that. In the Mac Geek Gab forums. His real name is Bob, but I'm going to call him Data for Nothing for short. In any case, Data for Nothing also suggested the interference problem, but gave me very specific diagnostic help. By the way, he's still helping me now. He's a lot of fun. Anyway, he suggested I hold down the Option key and tap on the Wi-Fi signal in the menu bar on my Mac. When you do that, the network you're using will have expanded information. Amongst other things, you'll see RSSI and noise. Now, I'd seen all of these numbers before, but I didn't have an explanation of how to interpret the numbers. Just as a side note, I looked up RSSI, and according to Wikipedia, it stands for Received Signal Strength Indication. That's a measurement of the power present at a received radio signal. Now, Data for Nothing explained that RSSI is the signal strength, and of course, noise is noise, but he went on to explain. He said RSSI in the minus 30s is fantastic, and anything approaching the minus 90s is lousy. Noise in the minus 90s is great, and as it drops closer to the minus 30s, means it's really bad for you if this is your channel. Now, oddly enough, while I was having these terrible terrible Wi-Fi problems, I should say, my RSSI signal was minus 34 dBm, and my noise was minus 92 dBm. I was well within the parameters that Data for Nothing had outlined. Later on in Facebook, John F. Braun suggested I spend some quality time with iStumbler. This used to be a free app that I used from time to time, but now it's $14. I bet if I'd never gotten it for free, I would have gladly shelled out $14. But that seems steep after free for so long. And then Data for Nothing suggested I use the built-in tool Wireless Diagnostics. I don't think I ever saw this tool before on my Mac, but it shows you how aware I am. I found a video from 2012 showing how to use it. This app is buried in the top level library/core services/applications folder. Rather than digging for it that way, though, you could just find it by holding down the Option key and clicking on the Wi-Fi symbol in the menu bar like we did before, and right near the top you'll find Open Wireless Diagnostics. For reference on more about this tool, I put the Apple support article in the show notes. Anyway, Wireless Diagnostic is packed with different tools. When you first launch it, it wants to run Wireless Diagnostics. I know that sounds redundant, but that's only one tool amongst many. If you continue, it'll analyze your network, but I didn't learn anything interesting from that. Next, I took a look at the scan window. So if you go up to Window and pull down to Scan, you get something much more interesting. In the main window, you can see all of the networks it found. It lists the name, SSID, security level, protocol, RSSI and noise, the channel being used, which band it's on in gigahertz, and the width in megahertz, and oddly, the country. I don't know why it has country. I would think it would know I was in the United States. Anyway, I was able to look at this data and see that there are 3 devices broadcasting on the 5 gigahertz band, one of which is mine, one is a printer of all things, and one is named Roy. I could see that Roy's signal was a paltry minus 87 dBm, while mine was a solid minus 33 dBm. Again, this supports the idea that my signal strength was just fine. Now, Data for Nothing suggested I open Performance Test from within Wireless Diagnostics. Again, you go to Window to find it, so Window Performance Test. This, let's see, this is probably one of my favorite things in here. It's a continuously updating set of graphs all in one window. The top graph is called Rate, and if you hover over it with your mouse, over that graph, it explains that it's showing you the transfer rate time in megabits per second. Now, there's more graphs coming to tell you about, but let's pause and talk about this first graph for rate and what it told me. I watched this data being collected and graphed real time, and it was all over the map. My rate was banging from 40 to 120 megabits per second over time. I wasn't sure what it should look like, though. I pinged my friend Pat Dengler and asked her if she could run the test where she was. She was at a business and she got a perfectly flat line on her graph showing 300 megabits per second. No variation in her graph while mine is moving, 200%. Wait, is that 300%? Yeah, it's 300%. Anyway, I plugged into wired Ethernet and suddenly my graph was a nice, non-varying line at 525 megabits per second. That seems reasonable on a gigabit network. So that's wired, it's a flat line, but on Wi-Fi, it's just bouncing all over the place. Well, I mentioned that the performance window has three graphs. The top is the rate as we've been discussing. The bottom graph has both the RSSI and noise I talked about earlier plotted on the same graph. These are graphed in units of dBm. The middle graph is the quality, and if you hover over it, it tells you it's showing you the signal to noise ratio over time in dB. Now, if it's a ratio of two things, and they're both in units of dBm, I thought the units would cancel out. So minus 30 dBm signal divided by minus 90 dBm noise should be 0.33 with no units at all. Well, understanding this required a lesson from the electrical engineer I keep on staff for just this kind of situation. First of all, dBm is short for decibel milliwatts. Let's break that down. Decibels, or dB, is a unit that was designed to help you compare numbers that are vastly different from each other. Let's say you have two numbers you're plotting, and one is like $1 million, where the other is hundreds of dollars. You couldn't plot them together and be able to see the second set of data at all. Decibels use a logarithmic scale, which allows you to see both values on the same graph. Now, logarithmic values are a funny thing. Normally, you divide two numbers of the same units, the units will disappear. So 10 inches divided by 2 inches would be 5 with no units, like I was talking about earlier. But with logarithmic values, you actually subtract the values when you do division to make the ratio. I know, I said it was weird. So 10 dB divided by 2 dB is actually 8 dB. You with me so far? All right. In our problem with signal strength, we're trying to measure the power levels of the signal and the noise. That means we want to compare it to a fixed reference, in this case, 1 watt or 1,000 milliwatts. That now gives us decibel milliwatts, or dBm. And if we want the signal to noise ratio, we subtract the two values and keep the units. In our example, our signal was minus 30 dBm, noise was minus 90 dBm, so we would have a signal to noise ratio of 60 dBm. Now, Apple plots this on a graph they call quality, and that's the middle graph in our performance window. All right, now, after that little lesson in logarithms, let's get back to trying to figure out what's making my rate be so wonky on Wi-Fi. Data for Nothing suggested it was time to bring in one of my many spare routers. He was trying to eliminate the possibility that there was some new interference happening in our house. If the Airport Extreme also gave us poor performance on Wi-Fi, then that would eliminate the possibility that something had gone wrong with the Netgear. I should mention that by this time in our story, our speeds on Wi-Fi were just fine. That didn't keep us from running the experiments to see if we could figure out whether something odd was going on with the Netgear router. So I dusted off the Airport Extreme. And by the way, in my house, when I say dust, I mean like get a mop out to get all the dust off. Anyway, I reset it to factory settings and I set it up in bridge mode attached to the Netgear. This time I'm sure I did it right on the whole bridge mode thing. Data for Nothing had suggested I run these tests on two different Macs at the same time. So I brought my MacBook Pro into Steve's den where his iMac lives so we could look at the graphs concurrently. At first, my MacBook Pro got this beautiful flatline graph while Steve's was bouncing all around with those curious square waves we talked about earlier. I moved my MacBook Pro from the bed over to the desk right next to his iMac, and then I got the bouncing up and down speeds too. Now, the theory that if the wonky behavior went away when we used the Airport Extreme, then we could definitely say that the Netgear's Wi-Fi was failing and I could go shopping for a new router. But now that the Airport Extreme exhibited the exact same behavior, I don't have an excuse to buy a new shiny. Instead, we have to look at interference. Fine. I also ran some tests changing the channel of the Netgear, but I managed to pretty much lose the signal entirely when I did that. I then started shutting off devices in the cabinet near the Netgear. One at a time, I shut off the Mac Mini, then the Drobo 5N2, then the Drobo 5N, then the monitor, and finally the printer. Nothing changed the performance graph. So this is everything around the Netgear router. Then I thought, okay, maybe it's something in my studio where I'm working. So I unplugged power to my dock, which shut everything off. I mean, all USB 3 devices, everything. I shut off my microphone, shut off my cameras, got rid of everything. I even shut down Steve's iMac in his den, and I pulled power on his dock. Nothing fixed that problem. Now, I bet you were thinking this story had an end. That I would, delightfully tie it up in a bow and be able to tell you the answer. Well, sorry to disappoint. This is a story that does not yet have an ending. I hope that you've learned a bit about fault isolation and about the cool performance testing you can do with the built-in wireless diagnostics app on your Mac. You know what? Maybe there's nothing wrong. Maybe it was some, neutrino attack and the square waves are normal for my house. Maybe my contractors use paint with little tiny wire mesh embedded in it. Maybe Stephen, my teaching assistant from our physics lab in college, is hiding in my house. We used to call him the astronaut. Anyway, I suggest that maybe the astronaut is here because once we were doing an experiment with traveling wave tubes, also known as TWTs. We had an oscilloscope set up measuring the wave patterns coming through them. We had this very weird problem. We just barely get this beautiful sinusoid on the oscilloscope, and suddenly the display would go completely wonky. We could not figure out what it was. We worked on it for a long time. Finally, we noticed that our teaching assistant, the astronaut, who, by the way, was frequently stoned, was sticking the metal tip of a yardstick into the other end of the TWT on the other side of the room. He thought it was hilarious. So, yeah, we may never know the end of the answer to this one, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. There.
Some of my edits did not make it in there.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me that when I was doing it?
I didn't realize it till you read it, and I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, but if I just recorded the whole, I thought it looked like exactly what I'd written.
Well, some did, so maybe I did an intermediate save. But the one that bothers me the most is when you do ratios, the units still cancel out. So signal to noise ratio is not dBm, it's just dB.
That's not what the graph says.
Well, the graph's wrong. The signal to noise ratio is unitless. It's a ratio of two numbers. Why are you
telling me now?
Like I said, I edited this and I thought the edits went through and I didn't notice it until you read it.
Yeah, but you didn't stop me when I was reading it. Now I don't know where it is.
Well, because I didn't want to interrupt you. Do you want me to interrupt you while you're doing it live?
If it's completely wrong and I have to fix it, yes, absolutely, I want you to.
All right. Well, I can I can point you to the paragraph, but that may not help.
Nope, doesn't. You got to point me to where it is in the waveform, dear.
Well, if you start playing,
look at the performance graph and explain it to me.
Where's the performance graph?
Open up wireless diagnostics. Everybody, let's let everybody play.
Yes.
Open wireless diagnostics. If you just do command space, it'll find it. But don't run the wireless diagnostics.
I don't have Wi-Fi running, so I can't. I guess I could. Well, if I turn it on.
You can turn it on. I turned mine on and it didn't disrupt anything. Right. Okay, so if I hover over quality, shows the signal to noise ratio over time in dB. That's why I said the units don't cancel out, and that's why I wanted to know why they did.
No, you just said dBm. It's dB. That's what I'm saying. There's no.
Okay, so there's a letter missing in what I said?
The units are that letter, and you said the units don't cancel out, but they do. And your blog post says they don't cancel out, but they do.
So, guys, we may have to say goodbye because this is, I don't know how to fix this, and I don't think I want to do it live because I don't know what to do. I don't know where I said it, and I don't know how to fix it. I don't know what it was supposed to say.
So when I hover over quality, it says shows the signal to noise ratio over time in dB, not dBm.
And the point of my story is that dB doesn't disappear because it's not really a unit measure. That's what I thought I said.
The dB doesn't, but the M does, and the M is really the units. The dBs aren't units. It's just it's a coordinate system in which to do.
Okay, I think what we're going to do is we're going to say goodbye to everybody, and I'm going to give Steve the headphones and let him figure out where it is. Because he didn't stop me, so I think he gets to figure out the edits.
That'll work.
Yeah, I'm going to, let me go ahead and record the end, because well, no. Okay, this is unsatisfying as the story was. I'm going to save, and I guess just I don't know what to do, Steve.
We can sign off and
why don't you say goodbye? Because I don't know what to do here. I'm paralyzed.
Goodbye, folks. Do you want me to stop the stream?
It's 5:59 anyway. Let's say goodbye. I like to wave goodbye to Rose. Goodbye, Rose. And guess we're out. As unsatisfying as the story was, we'll end just in midair.
If you want to hear the full post, just go back and listen to the podcast.
Wait, I've got a good idea.
What?
And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, head on over to podfeed.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly, enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed.